All right. Perhaps in the interest of time, because we have a fabulously rich agenda that we do want to get through, um, and I know more people are joining as we go. But I think probably the least important part of this call is the next minute or two that I speak. So probably best to go ahead and get us started. My name is Mitchell Warren. I am the executive director of AVAC, and I'm delighted to welcome all of you here on behalf of not only AVAC, but most importantly, on behalf of a partnership with Unitaid and the Medicines Patent Pool, the MPP. I think as everybody on the line knows, products don't get developed magically by one company ever, even if that's what people think. It takes a true global village, particularly in thinking about global health technologies. Delivering them, as well as first and foremost developing them, takes a huge number of partners. And this call represents not just the three organizations, MPP, Unitaid, and AVAC, but really represents the work of many, many collaborators, many of you on the line, and much of the information you'll see and hear about on the next hour and a half or so on this call really reflect a global ecosystem of partners collectively trying to accelerate the development of new technologies and their introduction. And there's so much information out there. And I know a number of us on the line, a number of our organizations have worked hard over the last several years to try to catalog all of that information. But much like prevention options themselves, if they're not used, they don't provide protection against any pathogen. The same with this information. It can sit on websites and in databases, but if it's not accessible and used by policymakers, by activists, advocates, funders, researchers, then these great resources really are not that useful after all. So this call really is a chance for our three organizations to come together to do a bit of show and tell, to help you all see the tools that exist and be able to engage with them and hopefully help them improve programs and policies and advocacy. Over the next little while, and you'll see a series of presentations as outlined here in the agenda. I'm going to turn it over in just a moment to Sheree Scott at Unitaid, who's been a great partner in thinking about this collaboration. But we'll then turn it over to colleagues at AVAC and MPP to do a quick landscape of where we are with PrEP. And then we'll get into three quick introductions of resources: the PrEP Watch website, the long-acting therapeutic patents and license databases, LAPAL, as you'll hear from the MPP, and the Access to Medicines Tracker from the MPP. Hopefully we'll be very interactive throughout this. So we encourage you to post your questions, your comments as we go, and stay tuned as you see on the agenda an interactive quiz to follow. I believe there'll be prizes, rings, pills, injections, all sorts of wonderful things if you stay tuned. And then we'll close with the Q&A. Again, you see lots of names there, all collaborators, partners in moving this work forward. I do want to say that for all of us, it's not just these three organizations. Obviously, these materials reflect work from across the field: product developers, funders, communities, policymakers, all stakeholders. I do want to say, certainly from our perspective at AVAC, we've been enormously grateful to support for the Biomedical Prevention Implementation Collaborative, the BioPIC project funded by the Gates Foundation, as well as the Mosaic Consortium funded by USAID and PEPFAR. And LAPAL has been supported through both the LEAP program funded by the NIH, the long-acting extended release antiretroviral research program, and by CELT at the University of Liverpool, their Center of Excellence for Long-Acting Therapeutics. So lots of acronyms, lots of partners, but lots of work that is required. So with that, I'm delighted to turn over to Sheree Scott at Unitaid to provide a welcome as well before we jump into the meat of the call.
Yes, and I'm excited to represent Unitaid today and welcoming you all on this webinar. We're very excited about these activities that are reflective of a long history of collaboration and work amongst various partners and stakeholders, inputting Unitaid. Part of our mission as a grant-making entity is to really advance access and availability of the best innovations, particularly for lower middle-income countries. And we are proud to be here as a founder and investor in the Medicines Patent Pool, as well as having had ongoing investments in PrEP, as well as advancing options for oral PrEP, long-acting cabotegravir, and the dapivirine ring, as well as other investments to move these things forward. In addition to that, we do have significant investments in long-acting formulations, advancing products for HIV, TB, malaria, and other conditions. So thank you for your participation. And we really do see these tools that will be presented today as powerful platforms to enable exchange, to enable advancing around our objectives for these types of products and innovations. So thank you and look forward to the discussion. I'll hand it over to Kat now with AVAC.
Thank you so much, Charisse, and thanks, Mitchell. And just really quickly before I start, I just want to remind everyone, we are being recorded and we will be sharing the recording and the slides afterwards. So no need to frantically take screenshots or notes. Everything will be shared. And please do put any questions you have in the chat and we'll try and answer them. Great. So I am going to start, and my name, by the way, is Catherine Briagim, and I'm a program manager at AVAC. So I'm going to start with some brief context on the current PrEP landscape. So next slide, please. So where are we with the PrEP rollout? Let's start by looking at initiations. This here is a heat map of PrEP initiations showing the number of times someone has initiated on PrEP by country. And this data comes from AVAC's PrEP tracker, which you will learn a bit more about later in this presentation. Since oral PrEP was first approved in 2012, globally, we've seen just under 5.7 million initiations to September 2023. The highest numbers we've seen in South Africa with over 1 million initiations, and Nigeria, Zambia, and Uganda with over 500,000 initiations each. Now, if you look at the bar graph on the right-hand side here, you can see the number of initiations by year, with the caveat that in the final bar there for 2023, we only have, of course, 3/4 so far of data. So on the graph, you can see we've seen a particular increase in the past 2 years. So just to kind of put this into context, from 2012 through to the end of 2021, we had seen just under 2 million initiations cumulatively. But then in 2022 alone, we saw just under 1.9 initiations, so almost as much in 2022 as all other years previously combined. And then in 2023, in just the first 9 months, we've seen 1.8 million initiations. So again, we are on track for another record-breaking year. So you can see here that the PrEP landscape really is bigger than ever and growing exponentially. Next slide, please. So now we've looked at initiations. What about products? Soon, those who want to use HIV prevention will have more options available to them than just a daily pill. There are several new innovations in the pipeline, and there's a lot more than what you see here further up the pipeline in the preclinical and phase 1 clinical stage. But these are ones that are just options that are just coming to market or in late stage clinical trials. We have a snapshot here. So just to go through them briefly, first we have vaginal rings. These are flexible silicone rings inserted into the vagina, which release ARVs. At the moment, the monthly dapivirine vaginal ring is just coming to market. It's been approved in 9 African countries, and several implementation science projects are ongoing. Next, looking at injectables, first we have cabotegravir, or CAB for PrEP. This is a 2-month intramuscular injection, shown to be safe and effective in 2 large phase 3 clinical trials. It's been approved by the US Food and Drug Administration, the European Medicines Agency, and in 11 other countries, with over 30 implementation science studies planned or starting to scale up. The second injectable, lenacapavir, or LEN, is a 6-month subcutaneous injection currently in phase 3 trials, the PURPOSE trials, with initial trial results expected next year. And if found to be safe and effective, it could be on the market as early as 2026. There are also 2 oral pills in the pipeline. The first one, FTAF, also known as Descovy, is a daily oral pill, which is already approved for use by cisgender men and transgender women, but is being trialed in cisgender women as part of the PURPOSE 1 phase 3 trial. There is also a monthly pill, currently known as MK8527, which is in phase 2 trials. Finally, we have the dual prevention pill, or DPP. This is one of several dozen multi-purpose prevention technologies, or MPTs, in the pipeline, but by far the closest to market. The DPP combines daily oral PrEP with the oral contraceptive pill to prevent both HIV and pregnancy. It's currently undergoing pivotal bioequivalence testing after passing its initial pilot bioequivalence phase, and it could start receiving regulatory approval as early as the end of 2024. So you can see, in addition to growing exponentially, the PrEP landscape is also getting more complex. So now to tell us a bit more about what this means for licensing, I'd like to hand over to Sébastien Morin from the Medicines Patent Pool. Thanks.
Very good. Thanks, Kat. So I'm going to give you an update on the access to the generic Cabotegravir for PrEP. A caveat to that is that this is looking forward into the future, so diverting a little bit from the current landscape. But it's important to think about this already now, given that the originator version of that product is starting to enter into markets, and that we need to plan now for uptake at scale in a couple of years. So next slide, please. So just a reminder before going into more details on Cabotegravir, the type of work that the Medicines Patent Pool does is based on voluntary licensing. And the idea behind this is to amplify the number of manufacturers on a given market, so bring more competition, which will lower prices and eventually increase uptake. And we're going to do that much earlier than in the absence of a license. That means several years before patent expiry. And when we have higher uptake earlier of optimal products, will create health impact. Next slide, please. So beside this licensing work, MPP also has a number of databases and tools to support access to medicines for advocates, for national programs, for procurement agencies and others. So we have the PAL suite, so patent and licensing information databases. You will perhaps know already MedSpal, and you will hear about LAPAL during this webinar. We also have access to medicines trackers, interactive map and table, and I'll present these also later today. Next. So just the last slide on MPP's work. If you want to learn more on what we're doing, we have our strategy that's available on our website for the next couple of years, and we have a number of papers that were published in peer-reviewed scientific journals, including one last summer in the Journal of the International AIDS Society, which covered access to long-acting HIV prevention and treatment regimens. So that's the one in red. Next. So now let's talk a little bit about Cabotegravir for PrEP. So Kat already covered a bit of that. So this is recommended by WHO. It's part of the toolbox for the HIV biomedical prevention tools. So we have also the dapivirine vaginal ring and oral PrEP, so TDF, XTC, which you will know very well. Important to know that Cabotegravir for PrEP is patented until 2031 in several countries, including a large number of low and middle income countries, many of which are where some generic companies are based. So in the absence of a license that's voluntary from the company that has developed this product, we wouldn't have access to generic versions, so we wouldn't see competition until 2031. But thanks to this license, and in large parts, this license has taken place because of community advocacy efforts. So thanks to this work, we will see in a large number of countries access to generics being possible. Next. So what does the license do? So first, it's a license that's voluntary, that's been agreed with the patent holder, Viv Healthcare, who has developed the product. It's been announced last year at the AIDS conference in Montreal. It covers the patents for Cabotegravir and allows a maximum of 3 licensees, which we announced earlier this year for development, manufacturing, and supply of the product. So these licensees are Aurobindo, Cipla, and Mylan. The 3 are large Indian manufacturers. One of them, Cipla, has plans to manufacture in South Africa. We know that there is technology transfer from Viv directly to licensees that is taking place in parallel to our work on licensing. And so we estimate, based on the information available at this point, that development and approval of generic versions will likely take between 3 and 4 years from now. So by the end of 2026 or somewhere in 2027, we should be able to see generic Cabalé for PrEP enter markets in low and middle income countries. The license includes quality requirements as usual, and it's fully transparent. So that means it's fully available on our website. Next slide, please. Just a few words to explain a little bit the selection process for the licensees. So this has been done through an expression of interest process whereby companies had to apply, answering more than 100 technical questions, which were reviewed in a blinded manner. So anonymized answers were looked at and then scored, and then we shortlisted, did a special on-site audit of the manufacturing plants, and eventually took a decision on the 3 licensees. So you can read this in more detail. We will share the slides afterwards. Next. So that's the license territory. Here we talk about an effective license territory, which means the countries that are listed on the license nominally. So these are 90 countries, all low-income countries, all lower middle-income countries, all sub-Saharan African countries, and all least developed countries. These are the countries in blue. And to this, because of a flexibility in the license, that's a special public health flexibility of the license, we have countries where there's no patent and where supply may be possible. And so these countries, all of which are upper middle income countries shown here on the map, are countries where there's no patent and where access may be possible. There might be other countries in other income level, in particular high income countries, but we're not showing these on the map here. Next. So this information is now available on our interactive map, and I'll show this a bit later today. Next. And so just final words to say that, you know, as we anticipate future availability of generic versions of Cabalé in a couple of years, it's time to continue expanding access to oral PrEP, gain experience, set up the systems and the awareness, but also plan for introduction of the injectable Cabalé for PrEP. At MPP, and I think I speak for everyone here on this call, on this webinar, we are available to clarify anything and support access at the country level. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Sebastian. So now we're going to have an overview of PrEP Watch, and I'll hand over to Junkie.
Thanks, Kat and Sebastian. Hi, everyone. My name is Junkie Taylor. I am a program coordinator at AVAC and am also part of the PrEP Watch management team. As many of you may know, and please, if we could go to the next slide. As many of you may know, PrEP Watch is like the clearinghouse for all things PrEP. And today we will review some of the resources PrEP Watch houses. The first are the country pages. The country pages are located on the country data tab of PrEP Watch, and these country pages can be accessed through a clickable world map. Here we cover several countries and we track PrEP access in about 136 to 137 countries. The country pages house data including the geographic location of a country, PrEP product approval status, and if approved, then year of approval, cumulative PrEP initiations for various PrEP products, PEPFAR targets for PrEP uptake, number of research projects ongoing or completed in a country, policy frameworks of import for the PrEP field in that country, and a set of featured resources, some of which are curated by people working on the ground and with their respective ministries of health. Additional resources on this page include a way to access the Global PrEP Tracker, a resource page for the raw Global PrEP Tracker data in case you would like to do research or modeling, a snapshot of PrEP updated every quarter, and a list of publications where Global PrEP Tracker data has been used for analysis. Now, clearly, I have mentioned the Global PrEP Tracker several times. The Global PrEP Tracker is a project that involves quarterly data collection through surveys filled out by PrEP program implementers across the world and desk research on PrEP uptake. Some of the key indicators tracked by the Global PrEP Tracker include cumulative PrEP initiations, PrEP product approvals, service delivery settings, demographics of PrEP users, and major results from PrEP studies. There are many new indicators being proposed to enhance the quality of data that PrEP programs track. For example, newly proposed indicators like PrEP dispensed could help improve tracking of PrEP coverage, and therefore we continue to evolve which indicators we track to provide data of the highest quality. We also have a trove of additional resources in our resource library that my colleague Kat can now speak to.
Thank you, Janki. Next slide, please. So now let's have a look at what you can find in PrEPWatch's resource library. The library contains over 770 PrEP-related resources and is growing every day. These resources include tools for advocates, demand generation resources, costing guides, M&E tools, WHO guidelines, national HIV strategies, published research, service delivery best practice, and much, much more. To help users navigate, we've invested a lot of time in making the search function as precise and accurate as possible, and results can be sorted both by relevance and most recent. And if you're not exactly sure what you're looking for, we also have helpful filters that let you search by topic, such as demand generation, products such as CAB for PrEP, formats like toolkits, populations like adolescent girls and young women, and region, language, or country. You can use more than one filter at a time to really help you find what you're looking for. And keep these filters in mind as they may come in useful later during the interactive portion of the session. So really, this is a way to really narrow down to what you need and help you find the resources you want out of our 770 plus. Next slide, please. So for those who may feel a little bit overwhelmed by the huge wealth of resources in the resource library, we have the Delivering PrEP page, which can point you to the most important key resources for each stage of the PrEP planning process. So policies, plans and budgets, supply chain management, delivery issues, and best practices, promoting demand and uptake, and monitoring and evaluation. So for example, our service delivery collection has key resources on provider training, counseling, provider behavior change, and facility assessments. We also have two product-specific collections, the Plan for Oral PrEP and the Plan for Ring toolkits, and these contain everything you need to help launch oral PrEP or the DVR in your country. Next slide, please. Now, there are two specific resources from the resource library that I'd really like to highlight here. These are two interactive Power BI dashboards that pack in a lot of information. First, we have the Integrated Study Tracker. This tracker reflects all currently known activities relating to implementation research, modeling, clinical research, and landscaping for new late-stage biomedical PrEP options. And this includes CAB for PrEP and the dapivirine vaginal ring. And it's a great way to quickly see how many studies are taking place for which products and which countries and which populations are included. And also has full details on study questions, so you know the objectives of the study and what type of data will be collected. The second dashboard is the Product Introduction Matrix. This tracks key indicators for the introduction of new PrEP products by country. So it's one single place where you can go to see regulatory status, late-stage clinical trials and implementation research, procurement plans, and recent oral PrEP provision. But look out because there's going to be a big upgrade coming to this dashboard soon. And check back on both of these resources regularly as we keep them updated in real time. And we'll have links to both of these at the end. And next slide, please. Now, finally, though the focus of this webinar is on PrEP data, I want to also ensure that you're aware of what else PrEPWatch has to offer. So we have detailed product overviews of all PrEP products that have received or expected to soon receive regulatory approval. So you can see that there. We also have narrative lessons from the field. So this includes blog posts, podcasts, conference roundups, etc. And we have our events calendar where you can find more events like today's. And of course, we are always interested to be adding more stories or more events. So if you have something you'd like us to consider adding, you can also contact myself or Janki. I'll share a contact in a moment. From the events page, our events archive is also searchable via our resource library. And this contains all recordings and slide decks from previous events. And it's also one of the locations where today's recording and slide deck will be posted. So the events page isn't just for upcoming events, it's also where you can find if there's an event you missed and you want to go back. and see it. Next slide, please. So I just want to say thanks on behalf of myself and Jonky, and we have our contact information here if you ever have any questions on Prep Watch or anything you'd like us to add. And now I'd like to hand over to Levna.
Thanks a lot, Kat. Thanks everyone for being here. I'm Levna Gayeb. I work at the Medicines Patent Pool. And as Sebastian mentioned, we are interested at the Medicines Patent Pool in licensing for access, and the long-acting technologies, including for HIV, are in the core of our work. So apart from voluntary licensing, we do work to facilitate access and focus on products that are innovative and might have impact for public health. So in this, we have LAPAL, the long-acting therapeutics patents and licenses database. You have the links to access it there. It's a free online resource providing innovation support and access support. It gathers data about technical features and development status, intellectual property of various long-acting therapeutics. It can be technologies or compounds. We'll see that later. And we focus on products or candidate products that might have impact in low and middle-income countries. This database is coordinated by the MPP. It was propelled by Unitaid, our main funder, and we are happy to collaborate with the University of Liverpool and the Center of Excellence for Long-Acting Therapeutics, with funding also from LEAP and from Unitaid to coordinate this database. Please, next. So what are LAPAL's main components? So of course we have the innovations. What are these products? Various features of them, the intellectual property landscape of these products, and also their development landscape. So we will have information on clinical trials and regulatory aspects. It's a one-stop shop for long-acting therapeutics. You will have information on technologies, compounds, and co-formulation of compounds with some platform technologies. We have a new dashboard in LAPAL with which you can see the evolution of clinical trials and have an overview of the regulatory status of selected products. And then we have also the access commitments of some innovators for pipeline acceleration. Next slide, please. So now I'm going to give you an overview of the main features of LAPAL. So when you land on the page on the left-hand side, you can browse either by technology or by compound. Then you can filter with different attributes of the products, or you can type in the product you're looking for. Next, please. In each of the product cards, you will have a summary at the bottom, and without going into much details, it gives you already the main attributes of the platform technology or the compound. Next, please. When you click on See More, you land on a page, next please, where you have information on what are the therapeutic area this product is used in, what are the potentially associated medicines. Next, please. In the next tab of the clinical trials, you have the list of the clinical trials where this product is being investigated. And when you click on the eyes on clinical trial details, next please, you have much information on what type of intervention it is, the link to the clinicaltrials.gov, what are studied populations, etc. Next, please. You then can have information on patents, and this is linked to MedSpal in many aspects. You see on the arrow on the left, the expiry date of the main patents relevant to this product, and when there is a license with the MPP, there is a checkbox. Next, please. When you click on the patent status, next please, you will have the list of low and middle income countries and high income countries where this product patent, this specific patent is granted, filed, or is not enforced. Next please. So as you see is worldwide coverage here, and on the license detail, you can compare that to the territory covered by the license. Next slide please, where it shows the list of jurisdiction included in the license. Next, please. Then on the dashboard part of LAPAL, you have illustration on all the clinical trials for which you have details as well. You can filter by use case, the drug name, but you can also filter by type of administration, type of formulation, etc. Next, please. And then on the regulatory status tab, you can select the drug and its use case, and it will give you the countries where it's approved or submitted, to our knowledge, and this is updated regularly. Next, please. Yeah, so I'd like to thank you for your attention. Don't hesitate to send us questions. I'm working on LAPAL with many people, but Mark is doing a great job putting together information for compounds, clinical aspects, etc. So thanks a lot, Mark, for that. And I hand it over to Kathy again.
Thanks, Lubna. So now we have Introduction to Access to Medicines track for Sebastian. Thanks.
Yes, thanks very much, Catherine. So next slide, please. So you'll see a little bit of instructions walking you through towards the interactive map, and then I'll do a live demo. So first of all, if you want to see information from the Access to Medicines tracker that MPP hosts on its website, first navigate to the main website, select Progress, and then Access to Medicine Tracker. That's going to be under Progress, Access to Medicines Tracker here. Then you get to a page which I will show you, and then if you scroll down at the bottom of this page, you'll find the interactive map from where you can start exploring. So from this, I will share my screen now, just so you can see the live demo, and we can explore together the different aspects of this web page. Whoops, sorry, there's too many comments appearing. So, okay, so as I mentioned, you go on the medicinespatternpool.org website, get onto the Progress tab, and select Access to Medicine Tracker. This will bring you to the Access to Medicines Tracker webpage. If you go to the end of that webpage, there will be what we call the interactive map. And there is also an interactive table. If you want to use this and see a little bit better, there's a full view sized interactive map, and also the same for the interactive table that are available through these links. So I'm going to make the demonstration from there, so it's going to be easier to follow. So you just minimize video. Okay, so you can select the year, the disease, the product, and the region when you look at this. If you select the year, you will not see the previous year. So that's something I never do personally. But and the disease, very often I know exactly what I'm looking for. So you can go straight to the product. So in our case, we want to look at Cabotegravir for PrEP. So that's this formulation here. When you select this, what you will see first is what we call the patent and licensing status. So the dark green is the list of the 90 countries included in the license. If you go on the right, you will see the first item says 90 countries are included in MPP and other relevant licenses. So that's a generic text here, but in this case, we know it's an MPP license. So 90 countries are included in the MPP license. Then we look at the light green. The light green says outside of licenses, but no patents found, and MPP sub-licensees may be able to supply. So that's the additional territory, which together with the list of nominal coverage represents the effective territory. In this case, we see 28 countries are outside of the license, but there's no patent found, and so MPP licensees may be able to supply. You could select the additional two ticks here. This one shows where there are patents and access is not possible. It's outside of the territory of the license, and there are patents preventing access to generics. And for this one in yellow, these are more complex situations where patents may or not be blocking, but it's difficult to assess directly from our side. This needs more, a deeper look at the national level at the patent office and into the actual patent claims. Now, what this interactive map allows you to do is also look at product availability through the MPP licensing. That's going to be shown for all MPP licensed products that are on the market. As we know, as I mentioned, Cabotegravir for PrEP is still in development, so there's nothing appearing here. Nothing is filed, nothing is approved, nothing is supplied. But now let's look at, let's untick a couple of boxes to look at filings, and let's go for something like TLD, first-line HIV treatment. We see some filings and regulatory reviews are taking place in some countries. We see that the product is approved in a large number of countries. And we see also that the product has been supplied at least once in all of these countries here in yellow. And you can see the number of countries here on the right. You can also go back in time, quarter by quarter, and see how this may have changed. Of course, TLD has been on the market for a long time, so there's not many change lately. But if you go back in time sufficiently, you see that some countries are disappearing. The timeline goes back to 2019. Now, if you go on, if we go back, I need to minimize. Yeah. If you go back to the first page and look at quickly at the interactive table, you'll see slightly different information. So that's a table that will give you the number of licensees for a certain product. The licensees pending approval with PQ or US FDA. Ready to supply means PQ'd, US FDA approved, or ERP, that's the expert review panel from Global Fund and WHO, and then countries where it's filed, approved, and supplied. So some of this information is the same as on the Access to Medicine interactive map, but it's slightly different. So let's take an example here, for example, dapivirine for hepatitis C. We see all these licenses, these licensees exist. All of them are WHO PQ'd, and they have been filed in these countries, approved in these countries, and supplied in these countries. This information can be exported, and this is available. For example, if you go here at the top of the interactive map, you can export. You can choose a language, but you can also export here as a CSV or an Excel file. And the interactive map, you can save map in PDF, PNG, and vector graphics format. You can also share a direct link that will lead to a specific setup of product, quarter, a year, a region selection that you can share a direct link to. So with this, I'll stop here. We will have, I think, in the next section, opportunity to test and use this tool as part of the other tools as well. And I'll be able to explain anything additional as needed. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Sebastian. So Chunky is going to share her screen now for the next section. Oh, sorry, just get all my windows ready. So to help demonstrate how these tools fit together and how you can use them to enhance your work, we're now going to have a short demonstration. So in this scenario, my colleague Chunky is a researcher who wants to understand PrEP access and availability in Malawi. So in this situation, our researcher is already very familiar with the PrEP tracker, has heard of it. So they start their journey by going to data.prepwatch.org, which is the site where the PrEP tracker lives, and they click on Malawi from the world map. Now a sidebar opens, which you can see here, and shows PrEP products available in Malawi, PrEP initiations over time, implementation projects for each PrEP product over time, service delivery settings, and an option to explore the country page on PrEPWatch. So this researcher is interested in initiation so far, so they click on the Explore Country on PrEPWatch button. They now see a map, which locates the country regionally. They see cumulative initiations, and also note the 2023 PEPFAR CUP targets. They now note their only initiation numbers for oral PrEP, and they want to find out more about when other products will be available in Malawi, so they shift their attention to the drug registration status table. They see that cabotegravir for PrEP, the dapivirine vaginal ring, and generic oral PrEP are all approved, and the year of approval is there as well. The researcher knows the implementers they work with will want to be prepared when CAB for PrEP becomes available in Malawi. So they then visit the PrEP Watch resource library, their resources, and look through for demand generation materials for choice. So they filter on CAB for PrEP and demand generation as the two filters, and they note the materials here that are available that they can then share with colleagues. But this is not enough information for the researcher. They're further interested in access to CAB for PrEP. And this is where PrEP Watch, Lapal, and the Access to Medicines Tracker complement each other. So now my colleague Lovna will explain how the researcher can use these additional tools for further information.
Thanks a lot, Kat. Thanks, Yankee. So if we shift to LAPAL, available through lapal.ch, with a user that's now interested in access to CAB-LA. So they search for cabotegravir, and they click on See More. And under the result, they see in the drug information that they note that the drug description and discover they could potentially be associated on the right-hand side on the top with potentially be associated with many technology platforms that are being studied to further extend the duration between injection or combine it with other drugs. Then they would like to understand who owns the patent relevance for cabotegravir LA for PrEP and in which countries these have been granted. So in the patent info tab, they see a list of relevant patents, and they see that GSK and ViiV Healthcare have patents until 2031. And by clicking on the I on the patent status, they notice that the patents are granted in a number of low and middle income countries. Top left side. Exactly. Thanks, Donkey. And then they notice, though, that there is a license with the MPP in a large number of LMICs. By clicking on license details on the I, where it says license details, the other I, on the right side. No, so these are high-income countries. If you close and go where license details there, yes, and you click on that I, it says what are the jurisdictions where, or the territory of the license. So now moving on to Medicines Tracker website, because they learned that there is a non-exclusive license that had been signed between the innovator and MPP, they wonder about the availability of generic versions of LAPAL for PrEP. So they select CAB-LA in the Access to Medicines Tracker. And they see that Malawi is included in the territory. So quality assured generic versions of CAB-LA for PrEP will be available there, although they are not available yet because the country is highlighted for is filed, and is approved, but not in supplied because their generic versions are not there yet. So we hope that with this demonstration of a sample user journey, you understood how these tools can be complementary. And if we move back to the slides, Janky will start explaining what features PrEP have and how these could be complementary with the other two tools. Janky, over to you.
Thank you, Lovna. So we do have a cheat sheet for everyone. This is going to be sent out with all of the additional materials that we sent out with the post-event materials. Just to make sure that everyone understands how these resources complement each other. I know it's been a lot of information, so it'd be very helpful for you all to see how to use these together. Thanks to Kat and Lovna for steering us through that user journey. So some of the information that you can be sure that PrEP Watch can provide includes PrEP research studies, including implementation studies, modeling studies, and more through, of course, the implementation studies dashboard that Kat originally mentioned earlier. PrEP Watch can also provide information on global PrEP approvals for all current PrEP products in the market, country PrEP and WHO PrEP guidelines, which can include strategic plans, monitoring and evaluation plans for PrEP implementation, and more, resources to support the PrEP rollout process, and data such as that on PrEP uptake and PEPFAR targets. I would like to pass it over to my colleagues who will summarize what information LAPAL and Access to Medicines Tracker can provide.
Thanks a lot, Janky. So as Janky was explaining, PrEP Watch covers these features. Two of them are complementary with what LAPAL does, where we can also find information on studies and product approvals. The LAPAL and Access to Medicines trackers also have information on HIV treatments and also other indications, but focusing on PrEP. LAPAL will give you information, technical information on the platforms and the compound that are long-acting. You could have also information on manufacturing when there is scale-up, the intellectual property information, as we showed, on patents and licenses, and for some of these on the innovator access commitments to make the product available, or at least to explore collaborations with other innovators. The Access to Medicines Tracker, as Sebastian shown, also has these features on patent and licenses for the MPP licensed product, such as Cabotegravir, also information on filings, approvals, supplies, and suppliers of MPP licensed products, so a wealth of information on those aspects, as well as a quarter-by-quarter, country-by-country data with possibility to explore historical data points up to 2019. Over to you, Kat.
Thanks. Next slide, please. So now is the time for our interactive quiz. So I'm going to put a few links here in the chat. Hope that works. So if you want to click the quiz questions link there, so Mentimeter, that is what we'll be using for the quiz. So if you click that link, that should launch the quiz for you. We'll go through it together. And then to find the answers, you use the 3 links there we have for PrEP Watch, for LAPAL, and for the Access to Medicines Tracker. So I'm going to share my screen now so we can go through the quiz together. Great. So I can see some people have already started answering. So I'm going to hand over now to Awira and Lovna to go through the quiz.
Okay, thank you very much, Kat, Lovna, Sebastian, and Janky, for that very informative session. And we've learned a lot, and it's really great to have you, walk us through a journey. And we could not close this without trying to figure out whether what was explained makes sense, whether we are able to interact with some of these platforms. And so the first question, we saw that the PrEP initiations are around 5.7. And we were just curious to see what you think are the top 3 countries with the, the highest PrEP initiations. And I see the answers are coming through. For those that have not voted, please click on prepwatch.org, go in there and vote. We want to make sure that you understand how to interact with that site. Okay. We'll still have a few seconds for if you haven't voted, and we'll be closing soon. Okay. I think some few people are having challenges accessing. Thank you. Interesting. So we have 8 ties, 2 ties for 8, 5, 2, and 1. So if you could go to the next, what is the correct answer? Okay, so a lot of people got it. Yes, we have South Africa, Nigeria, and Zambia. And if I was on PrEP Watch and I was looking for this information, I would be a little bit curious to understand how you got there. So Kat, if we want to check the top 3 countries, how do we get there?
Thanks for asking. So you can, if you want, go straight to data.prepwatch.org, but you can also get to the PrEP tracker, just to show everyone how you get to the PrEP tracker, by going to country data and then clicking on here for the global PrEP tracker. So global PrEP tracker, but I already have it open here. Now, if we want to see, if we want to look at who has the highest number of initiations, you can see here we have initiations in a heat map. You could quickly look at the heat map and see, you know, which countries are darker. But if you want to be precise, we can look at view across time, and you can see we have it sorted here highest to lowest. And then you can see sorted highest lowest, we have South Africa, Zambia, and Nigeria. And if you hover over here, you get the exact number, and this is cumulative to this point. So up through Q3 2023, since the start of PrEP, South Africa's had 1.175 million initiations.
Thank you very much, Kat. And for the next question, I am a little bit curious. What makes, you know, South Africa have all those initiations, because it's clearly leading? And in my mind, I'm thinking there must be something that is in place to facilitate those number of initiations. And so we were wondering, when it comes to the policy environment or the policy framework, what policies do you think South Africa, which is leading in terms of the number of initiations, might have in place? Let's see what you think. Please go in there. And wow. It looks like South Africa has quite a number of policy documents in place. And that could be one of the reasons why they are able to, you know, have so many decisions, because that means the policy, you know, landscape is friendly to the introduction of PrEP. And Kat, if you could take us back, just for in case somebody was not able to pick it up, where do we find about the policy landscape for South Africa, if we want that information?
Thanks, Samira. So again, we're on PrEP Watch. We're in the country data section here, data by country. And we scroll down, look at the map. We have South Africa here. And just to note, maybe if your geography is not great and you wouldn't immediately know where to click on South Africa, you can also have the list view here. And it's sorted alphabetically, just in case you need a little help with your geography. So we click on South Africa. We have the South Africa country page, similar to the Malawi page we just looked at earlier. And if we scroll down to the bottom, we get the policy frameworks. And you can see that all 4 of the selections are available for South Africa.
Thank you, Kat. On to the last question on PrEP Watch. And now I was just thinking, with, you know, PrEP becoming, you know, available, and I might be wanting to design a demand generation, you know, program for adolescents and young women. And before I can do that, I want to find out whether there are resources that can guide me in that perspective. So in your thinking, how many do you think we might have on PrEP Watch? How many resources to guide our, you know, demand generation for adolescents and young people? If we want to find out how many they are, how do we get there? You go in there, check, and let us know how many you find. It looks like we are struggling in finding the resources. And no problem, if you can't find them, we'll find them together. Okay, Kat, it looks like we have a few challenges getting the resources on demand generation. If we were looking for those specific resources to guide, demand generation for CAB amongst AGYW, how might we find those resources?
Great question. So let's go to the resource library. Sorry, just move this out of the way. Resource library. And now we're going to use the filters. So the topic we're interested in, demand generation. So you can see that already narrows it down from over 770 to 115. Now we're interested specifically in CAB for PrEP. So under product, cabotegravir. And again, we've narrowed it down to 8, but we're most interested in resources specifically for AGYW. So we go to populations, expand this one, and we find adolescent girls and young women. And just wait for update. And you can see there are 4 resources here. And just since we're looking at the resources, let's have a look at what they are. We have the HIV Prevention User Journey Tool. This is actually one of the most popular resources on PrEP Watch to support adolescent girls and young women to find the right PrEP method for themselves. We have another extremely popular resource, the HIV Prevention Ambassador Training Package and Toolkit to help train like peer navigators and community-based organizations promote engagement with communities on PrEP. We have the Mosaic Gender and Youth Strategy, and then we have a slightly older document on creating demand for PrEP among adolescent girls and young women. So we have 4 great resources here to help promote demand of CAB for PrEP amongst adolescent girls and young women. And so the correct answer is 4.
Thank you so much, Kat. And I'll hand it over to Lobna to share with us some more in terms of what we can find at LAPAL.
Thanks a lot, Lawira and Kat. So now back to LAPAL. You can click on the chat on the URL that we posted. How many long-acting technology platforms that are listed in LAPAL could potentially be associated with cabotegravir? So I'll let you look for the information and start voting. So in the meantime, I'll tell you how we gather this information. So either we approach innovators, it can be in academia, startups, big pharmaceutical company who are developing a technology platform, and then they fill in a questionnaire. So any innovator can fill in that questionnaire by registering to LAPAL, and they put in the information and they let us know when possible if they are testing their platform with a given drug. And this is interesting because it synergizes with what is out there, and it helps extend potentially the injection times or the administration times. Okay, so we have 5. Kat, should I share my screen, or you want to share your screen to show? What do you prefer?
Yeah, I'll keep sharing. So if you want to just talk me through it to make
sure.
sure.
Yes. So you select cabotegravir. No, sorry. You type cabotegravir on the top on the search where it says technology name, ABI. Yeah. And then you have either you scroll down and you see the technologies have a symbol that's a lighter pink, and you count there are 4 there, and you scroll down, there's a 5th one, or you deselect compounds there, and it will show you the 5 technologies. Or if you click back on compounds, and you go through cabotegravir, see more. On the top left, you see associated technologies, and you can click on those, and it would tell you what kind of technology they are. So we have microarray patches that are being studied together with cabotegravir, implants, in situ forming gels, and also hydrogel. These are the ones we know of, so maybe there are others, but this is promising. I hope you didn't have many trouble finding the answer to this question. Can we move to the next question now?
So it's confirming the right answer was 5.
It is 5. Well done, everyone. So this was, I think, addressed a little bit in the presentation, but let's see if you are attentive. In the absence of a voluntary license, when could generic quality assured version of lenacapavir enter the market in most LMICs? So you can find this information through MedSpal, but also here with LAPAL. It's not straightforward. Okay. So it looks like 2037 or 2034. So it's going in the right direction. While people still look at this, Kat, maybe we start investigating the answers. So by going to LAPAL in the home, you write Len, and it will show you lenacapavir compound. Yeah. Patent info. And then you see a list of patents that we have identified with expiry dates of 2034, 2037, 2038. The 2038 is a crystalline form of lenacapavir sodium salt, so might be not that relevant for the injectable, but still. So probably 2034, 2037, depending on the country. To know the countries, you have to click on the patent status I, and then you would see where it's been granted or filed. So let's say at least 2034, and for some countries, 2037. Okay. Thank you, Kat. I'll pass it on to Sebastian to guide us through this question for access to medicines.
Yes, thanks, Lumna. So this question is a bit different. It's an open question, so we'll see a cloud of answers, hopefully all good answers. So I'd like you to use the Access to Medicine tracker interactive map and list 3 countries that are included in the MPP license territory for generic long-acting injectable cabotegravir for PrEP. So I want the countries that are in the license, the ones that are listed in the license. So maybe we can give a few moments for names of countries to pop up. So these already start looking okay. So there's 90 countries that are as such. I invite you to add your preferred country. Hopefully that's one of the 90. So maybe a couple of seconds more. So obviously it's difficult to remember a long list like this. So I'll show you how you can access this information. So if you go on the Access to Medicine Tracker tab, it's already set up properly, I think, almost. So you would go under select a product, Cabotegravir. So that's the injectable because it's a concentration, a quantity per volume. So it's a liquid concentration in the formulation. By default, it will show you what we call the list of countries that are included in the license. So that's what we're looking for here. So that's the dark green. So if you unclick the light green, we would show only the 90 countries that are part of that territory. And if you go on the right of the tab, there's some text and scroll down a little bit. Yeah, so that would show that there's 90 countries included in the MPP license. So all of these countries that are in dark green are good answers for that first question. So now we can go to the second question. And I think they were all good. So, well, there's Brazil that popped up there. Brazil is unfortunately not part of the territory. Now let's look at the other question. So the list of, if you could list 3 countries each, countries that are not in the licensed territory. So they're not gonna be found in the appendix of the license where countries are listed. They're not part of these 90 countries. They're not part of the definition that makes up these 90 countries. So not part of the dark green in that map. But access in these countries may be possible because there's no patents. So I invite you to list at least 3 countries each, and we'll see what people come up with. There's many more than 3, so yeah, looks good so far. Okay, Iceland, USA, that's unfortunately high-income countries with patents in place. Hawaii is part of USA, so that wouldn't be a good answer. But let's look at the answers. If you go back to the Access Medicine Tracker tab, and now we unclick the dark green, we should show the light green. So light green has, for example, Venezuela, it has Panama, it has Ecuador, Peru, Argentina, Paraguay, it has Libya, Thailand. In a couple of years, there will be additional countries showing up because they have patents that expire earlier. So the patent timeline for Cabelé is 2031. But there are countries where there's only a patent in place until 2026 or 2027. That's the case in Colombia, for example. Colombia has a patent that will expire at in mid-2026. So eventually will become light green at that point. And Malaysia has a patent that will expire in 2027 and will become light green at that point in time. And that's we think that's when more or less the generics will come onto the market. So virtually these countries will are meant to be having a good access future, let's say. So that's it for this demonstration. As you will see on this map, something I didn't mention before, all the light green countries shown here are high-income countries, and they're not covered by the map. If there are supplies, so on the product availability to MPP license in the future, supplies are shown for any countries where they happen. And that's the case sometimes because there's no patent in a high-income country too. That can happen. That's the case, for example, for Uruguay. In the case of dapivirine, for example, if you would toggle dapivirine and supplies, you would see that it has received some supplies of generic products, even though it's not shown on this map when we look only at access, given the map is limited to the darker gray countries, which are all low and middle income countries. So thanks. Well done for everyone who had a good answer.
Thanks, everyone. Thank you. We are Levna and Sebastian. So I'm going to stop sharing the screen now for a moment. And I'm going to hand over to Annie Cameron from Unitaid to take us through Q&A and see if there might be any satisfied users of any of these products also who might want to share their experiences. Thanks.
Thank you so much, Kat, and thank you to all of the presenters. What an amazing and rich set of resources. It's amazing to have all of this information at our fingertips. So thank you, and thank you for all the effort that's gone into making them all so accessible. My name is Annie Cameron. I am a technical officer on the strategy team at Unitaid, and I'm happy to be helping to moderate the Q&A today. So if anybody has any questions, please feel free to pop those in the chat or just to raise your hand. I saw there was already one in there, but what to do if we can't find what we're searching for on PrEPWatch, and Kat and Jenki have answered and provided their contact information. So thanks for that, Kat and Jenki. So maybe just while we are waiting to see if anybody has any questions, we wanted to also open up the floor to see if anybody wanted to come in to share anything about their experiences with using any of these platforms, with PrEPWatch or with LaPal or with the Access to Medicines Tracker. If there are any users of these who just wanted to share how they've found the information to be useful and how they use it in their roles and in their work. we'll give everybody some time if you want to share any reflections on your use of the platform. So have any questions, again, please feel free to use the chat or just come off of mute or raise your hand. Parag, I see you have something in the chat. I'm not sure if you wanted to raise a question. We can't hear you, at least I can't, but feel free to put it in the chat or try to come off of mute again. In the meantime, Mitchell, did you want to come in?
Sure. I thought just in the absence of other questions, thank you so much. An amazing display of information. I just wonder, in the midst of all of this data, is there anything that any of you who've presented think what's missing? Is there a piece of information or a data source or a package of information that you wish we still could add to this incredible compendium, or is this all of it?
Great question, Mitchell. Who would like to start? Lubna, I see that you are here on camera. I don't know if you have any thoughts on that. And then
Yeah, sure. Thanks for the question. Thank you, Annie. Thanks, Mitchell. Yeah, we do have ideas to improve. And we've been improving LEPAL across the 2-3 years ago. Now with the new collaboration we have and with that new complementary grant to Unitaid funding, from NIH, we will be able to add more data on other compounds, add benchmarking tool to compare technologies across them. So it will be like one of these websites where you buy things and you can compare their features, and you would compare which technologies have are longer acting than others, their use case, etc. So stay tuned for that. Hopefully by June 2024, we will show you a new version of LEPAL.
Amazing. Thank you, Lubna. June 2024. We will look forward to that. I see another hand up, but just before we move on, wanted to see if anybody from the PrEPWatch team or Sebastian with regarding the Access to Medicines Tracker, if there were anything that you wanted to add in response to that question as well about other information you would like to add to your databases.
Yes.
Yeah, perhaps. Oh, go ahead.
Go ahead, Jenki.
Thank you. I was just gonna say that the country pages, a lot of the information we get from people like you. Just about a year or two ago, we were only tracking about 80 countries, and now with the help of people who are involved in everyday work with these countries, with their ministries of health, who are directly reporting to us, voluntarily providing information, we have grown our information and data to up to 136 countries. So definitely this is something that is a growing database, and we would love to work with all of you to continue providing higher quality and more data as possible.
Wonderful. Thank you, Jenki. And Sebastian?
Yes, so just a couple of points that maybe are worth adding. So the interactive map that I've been showing in the table, these are linked and based on the MedSpal database web for patent information. So for anyone who wants to dive deeper into the specifics of each country patent landscape for a given product, they can find this on MedSpal. medspal.org, and there they will find a lot more drugs, several formulations that might or not be on the market. So some of these will be in development, some of these will exist only as originator, but they will find a lot more information. On top of this, I think it's important to note that the information that we show on the interactive map in terms of filings, approvals, and supplies is based on what we receive from manufacturers who are licensees to MPP. They have legal requirements to provide this information to us on a quarterly basis, and this information is just a very high-level summary of the information that we get. So we see also for example, the volumes, each single order that is placed at the country level. And with this information, our business development team uses that to drive access. So to point to countries where there might not be enough competition, to point to countries that have not received yet any supply. And so we're not only using reporting on this data in a passive way, but rather acting on it and wanting to share it so that procurement agencies and others at the country level can also act upon the information. So in terms of identifying opportunities and also scaling up when they see that their country is not yet yellow, for example, in terms of supply.
Great. Thank you so much, Sebastian. I see we have a hand up from Jean, and then a comment in the chat we'll go to after, but Jean, go ahead if you'd like to come in.
Hi. So I wanted to ask where folks can get the information about products that are still in development and on PrEP Watch in particular. And I'm also really curious from both teams to hear which tool do which particular questions that can be answered on your site do you think are most underutilized but most important to be found? There's a lot of these that I think people are relying on in the field, like the PrEP tracker, but what do you think is really underutilized that you want to make sure people know about?
Really excellent questions. Thank you. So the first question around where to find information on products in development, specifically on PrEP Watch. Kat or Jenki, did one of you want to come in on that?
Thanks. I can come on that. And let me share my screen because I think it will help illustrate. Go back to screen sharing for a moment. So thanks for the great question. On PrEP Watch, you can find information about products in development. First, you can always search in the resource library, but if you have specific ones you're interested in, we have this section, Products and Partners. And if you look here and go under Products, you can see we have information listed by products, and we have first products that are approved, at least in a few countries, and then in development. So we have dedicated pages to both the dual prevention pill and injectable lenacapavir. And we have some information here. We have this really great, useful graphic for upstream R&D. So if you want to see what's in the pipeline all the way up to the preclinical or all the way back to the preclinical stage, we have detailed information on that here. Thanks. So that's it for PrEP Watch. I'll hand over for the other websites.
Thank you, Kat. Lubna, of course, Lapel has a ton of information on products in development as well. Did you want to add anything before we move on to the second part of that question?
Yeah, I know that Parag in the chat wanted to speak, but somehow he was unable to get himself off mute. So I will just read the experience. And incidentally, it's actually one of the places where we notice less interaction. People seem to be more interested with the products that are more advanced, but Parag is telling us that for his work in business development as business development professional, it gives him information about the organizations which have developmental capability and can handle product development. So in the sense that, for example, it will give you an idea of which technologies require what material to be scaled up, which kind of excipients are investigated with the different technology platforms. It can even tell you what are the theoretical compatibilities between a technology and a desired drug, so that organizations or innovators can collaborate together to increase the offer of tools, including for PrEP.
Wonderful, thank you, and thank you as well, Parag, for your comment in the chat. It's great to hear that it's been such a useful database for you. So, Lavna, you mentioned that that's also one of the areas that's most underutilized. Are there any other specific pieces of Lapel that you feel are most underutilized that could that would be maybe useful if more people knew about them, and then we can go to the other platforms as well?
Yeah, sure. So we added a feature which is a sort of certificate, a verification by the innovator. So we add information, then we approach the innovator to collaborate with them to gather information and make sure it's fact checked, and they are fine with it being online. The other aspect is the access commitment, and this we would want the innovators that feature their products on LAPAL to more actively examine them and show their commitment to them. And here I would like to take the opportunity also to ask people to let us know about updates in compounds or technologies that they see that are missing on the website, or if they know of some technologies that should be there, to let us know, and we could evaluate their addition to the website. And obviously, startups or smaller companies that want to add their technology platform, they are able to do it on their own by registering and filling in a short questionnaire.
Thank you, Lobna. And if people do notice pieces that are out of date or missing, who should they reach out to?
They can reach out to me or to Mark. I will share the emails, and they are also on the slides. Thanks, Annie.
That would be great. Thank you. Kat or Jinky or Sebastian, anybody else on comments on pieces of your platforms that you feel like are the most underutilized? Kat, I see you coming back on camera.
Yes, and I'm going to share my screen again, just to demonstrate. Now, I talked about this piece. Oh, sorry. I talked about this piece a bit in my presentation, but a lot of people aren't really aware of our Delivering PrEP page. This is where we keep all the highlights from the resource library, and we can see in the analytics that people don't really go to this page, but this is really our best stuff. So I really hope everyone on the call takes away that Delivering PrEP on PrEP Watch, this section, is really key for resources. We have everything split into stage of the rollout process, and everything's recently been reviewed and reorganized, so it can really make it easy to point to like our most important significant resources. And I think, yeah, it's quite underutilized, so I hope everyone now is aware of where you can find our Delivering PrEP pages. Thanks.
Excellent. Delivering PrEP, a hidden gem on PrEP Watch. Thank you for sharing. Any other pieces or specific pieces of information that that anybody wanted to highlight right now, or any other questions? If not, then Kat, I'm not sure how we're doing on time. If I think you maybe had some more questions you wanted to ask the audience, or if we need to close out, up to you.
Yes, I do. Thank you. I would like to do one more quick Mentimeter, because I'd love to get everyone's feedback on what they thought of today and what they think of the tools we've shared today in general. So hold on, I'm just about to pull that up for you. Okay, and get the link. So here is the link in the chat. I'm just popping that in, and I would love if everyone could click on it. I'll just show quickly on my screen so you can see the questions that we're asking. Oh, great, some people are voting already. So just 3 quick questions really that I would love everyone to answer today. Do you feel like you learned something today about a tool that you can use to enhance your work? Again, don't feel pressured to say yes, but we really hope you did. Also want to know just a free text question, and what additional data, like what Mitchell was just asking, would you like to see on PrEP Watch, Lapal, or the Access to Medicines tracker? And if you want to think about this, you don't have to fill it in immediately. And then any other feedback you'd like to leave on any of the tools shown today, anything you think could be made easier, simpler. We are always reviewing PrEP Watch to try and make it more user-friendly, and it's your feedback that helps us to do that. So if you could just fill those in. Oh, and great feedback in the chat.
Wonderful. Yes, looks like feedback in the chat that somebody has found a terrific, Rebecca has found a terrific set of slides on pregnancy and PrEP. So that's great. And it looks so far from the poll like everybody has learned something today. So a huge thanks again to all of our presenters. I imagine the Mentimeter will stay open for a while. If you have comments that you want to put in response to the other 2 questions that Kat asked, and information's been put in the chat as well with contact information from the various organizations for any comments or questions as well. Sebastian, I see you have a hand up.
Yes, and very importantly, I think, some of us, in particular, that's my case. I'm just a messenger here. I haven't been involved in any of these developments. I'd like to just thank all the colleagues who have done that, and in particular for the Access to Medicine tracker and MedSpal, our patent information team, and the people in charge of our website. I think these are massive databases that have that I've found very useful, which is why I'm so happy to represent those. But I don't, I don't need to get any credit on that. I think it's all for them and for everyone involved in this call and behind the scenes for all these tools.
Thank you, Sebastian. A really important point. They are indeed massive databases and all very beautiful as well, which is no small feat to make them easy to navigate. So a huge thank you to everybody involved in that effort. I don't see any more questions. So Kat, I will hand back over to you.
Thank you, Annie. Thanks for moderating that. And now I think Mitchell is going to close us out right on time.
Well, I must say this was terrific. And thank you to all of the presenters and the partnership across Unitaid, MPP, and AVAC. But I have to say, in the 90 minutes, Rebecca, your note at the end perhaps makes it all worthwhile. I think all of us who work on these databases and resource libraries are much like product developers. We do them so that they get used, so that they can have impact, so that they can help improve policies and programs, as I said at the beginning. So these are very much like long-acting PrEP technologies. If they don't get used, it's not worth having developed them. And so we really look forward to continuing to iterate on these, partnering with all of you, and making sure that these are really meeting the needs of the policymakers, funders, product developers, advocates, individuals who need them. So thank you all. We'll definitely be sending out all of these resources. You saw in the chat the email addresses. Please do let all of us know what more can be done. And I do want to just highlight how important it is that all of these, thanks to donors, are open access. This is really a critical piece. There's a lot of information, particularly in product development, that often lives behind paywalls. All of this from MPP, Unitaid, and AVAC is open access, and that is really a critical piece to make materials, much like we want to make eventual products, accessible and equitably available to one and all. So thank you again to everybody, and look forward to many more opportunities.